coming back in part two. Welcome from the Seattle Public Library. So my name is Jay Lyman. I'm a librarian here at Seattle Public Library. And today I just want to welcome you here. How many of you weren't here last week? Anybody? A couple of you. Okay. So just for like logistically, if you haven't discovered it already, the restrooms are around the corner here. Follow the red hall around. If you get around to the door, you push on the door, don't pull on the door. And so that's all I have to say today. So I'm going to turn it over and just welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hey everybody, my name is Fuzz. That's all. You can just call me that, like Beyonce, Madonna. Just call me Fuzz. It's short for a really, really long name that you don't want to learn right now. What we're here today for is to learn how to do basic data visualization. That is the main goal. But at the same time, we are also going to, apparently my voice is not loud enough. We are also trying to teach you how to access data through the census database. So how many of you people here have actually gone into the Census Bureau Census database? Like actually have access there and look at the big, huge database that it is. Okay, so before we start, I do want to introduce our partner that made all this happen, of course, the Census Bureau themselves. So see you back there. You want to come, Frank?
Nice to come back. And saw some familiar faces last week. Did everyone have a good time with Rome? Show me your hand. Good. Any feedback, any feeling good to share? So today we're going to pull some data out of Census Bureau's databases. We're going to work on data out of American Community Fact Survey. Jerome, last session we covered is it's a census-owned visualized data tool. It actually is a combination of multiple sources of census data sets. American Community Survey definitely is part of it, and also we pull a lot of Jerome also pull a lot of figures from census economic data. I do want to stress some differences between decennial census, which is coming up soon, Census Day is April 1st, and American Community Fact Survey. Decennial census, the big census happens every 10 years. And this year, the questionnaire only contains 9 questions. American Community Fact Survey is a longer version of census forms in general. Even before 2020, in earlier decades, I heard my colleagues talk about census long form and short form. Did anyone remember? Long form and short form? So long form asks more in-depth question, and short form is just up to 9 or 10 questions, period. Before 2020, before even say 2010, people census we count everyone who lives in the United States, and the census operation team have their own rule who will get a long form, who will get a short form. And this time around, 2020 census, we're only doing the short form. American Community Fact Survey is conducted on a rolling basis. The sample size is 10,000 households every year. Has anyone received a questionnaire from American Community Fact Survey? Ever? You did? Oh, cool. Whoever received that long form is lucky few, because that's like 2% to 5% every year population. Very similar like decennial operation. We send out the form to you and is mandated in hoping you to just respond, please. If say after a period of time not responding, someone will call you or just follow up with you. Very similar as decennial census, we're going to send out invite sometime in late March through USPS snail mail as a postcard and say, hey, the portal will be opened up soon. Please respond to your 2020 survey, 2020 census questionnaire online, on the phone, or paper form. And then we'll continue sending you reminders. About end of summer, say you still have not received, either missed the mail or did not self-respond, non-response follow-up people will knock on your door and help you fill out the survey on spot. very similar as decennial census, American Community Effects Survey folks, they're more thorough. According to my colleagues, they will send you more frequent reminders, and they are going to kind of push you to do that, and even help you additional assistance. Just go over those questions with you, trying to make sure all participants will be able to understand the question and provide the best knowledge as they can. That's pretty much all I know about American Community Survey, and I hope you all will have fun. We'll play it together. Yeah.
Thank you, Sue. So for today, before we start, just to get a feel about what people expect from this class so that we can kind of be flexible with the direction that we're going to do to go today, I want to get a show of hand. How many people have already done basic visualization using Microsoft Excel before? Okay, so plenty of people here know how to do that already. And how many people here today because they are interested in learning more about the Census Bureau database? Okay, so we'll try to spend a little bit more time on the census itself, on the database, and then but there are also people here who want to learn about how to use Microsoft Excel to do data visualization. So we're going to go through that pretty quickly. So before we can even use Microsoft Excel to visualize any kind of data, we obviously need the data first, right? Like so today, the goal of this workshop is to use the data from the Census Bureau. And like CEO was saying, there are many kinds of survey. So you're not just looking at American Community Survey, although that is what we're going to be focusing on today. But when you go into the database, there is the 10-year survey, that's 10-year census, and then you have the economic census, and then you have the ACS. So just make sure that you are aware that this is not just data from ACS. As you go through the database, you're going to see the source of the data, and just make sure that you pay attention to that as well. Okay, so we already opened this page for you. So this is what a typical data table looks like in the ACS. So if let's say, so for today, actually, most of the activities that we're going to do today is going to be focusing on this particular data, which is the poverty status in King County, Washington for the past 12 months. So if you see over here, it says United States. So we're going to use the tools that we have in the database today to get the specific data that we want. So if people haven't gotten to this page yet, I want you to actually type in there that you're looking for the word poverty. And then you will see that the poverty status in the past 12 months would most likely be the first search result that you find. Okay, so once you go in there, you want to click the Customize Table button over here. And it would give you this row of filters that you can use. So for today, we're going to work on the data from King County, Washington. So you want to go to Geography, pick County, Washington, King. Okay, and make sure that the product up here, it should be by default be the latest one, which is the 2018 ACS 1-year estimate. So for today, all the activities and all the quizzes that we're going to be working off will be using the 1-year estimate of different years. But just make sure that you always check this part to make sure that you're working off the right data. Okay? Any questions before we move on? Okay. So this is the data that you should be getting. Notice how there's a download button over there. This is, of course, for you to download the data and import it as a CSV. CSV is, just an Excel spreadsheet. But for this particular data, you can try it, download it, and see how it looks like. It looks like nothing. So if you download it, it will make no sense. The data, the CSV file is encoded in a way that it doesn't stand on its own. It stands in the database. It makes sense in the database, but when you try to download it, it doesn't translate into numbers so that you can use it to visualize. So what we're going to do today is we're going to do the old school way of importing data. Anybody want to give a guess on how we're going to do that?
Copy paste.
Yeah, we're going to copy and paste, exactly. So, so what we will do later on, you guys don't have to do this right now, but we're going to copy paste the information. We're just going to focus on the age today. Of course, the database is always really, really big. And you really just want to know, okay, what am I focusing on today? So for this, for the purpose of this workshop, we're just going to look at the age. So because this is a screenshot, so I would actually go into the website so that I can show you. Okay, so does anybody know what, like when you look at this, there's so many numbers, there's margin of error, there's estimate of total, estimate of below poverty level, there's percentage, all of this, does it make sense to you, just one snapshot, what this data means? Okay, so today we are not going to look at the percent below poverty level because this is the percent of poverty level per group. So when it says 11.4% here, it means that 11.4% of people under the age of 18 years old, of the people that have been surveyed, live below poverty level. So yes, so if at any point you're stumbling or trying to figure out or have a question, just raise your hand. If you have a question for me, and you want the whole class to know your question, you can just ask me directly. But if you just want to ask something about what you're working on right now, you can also get the attention of the TA today. Okay, so we're not going to look at this. So the one cool thing I want to highlight about the database, though, if you, let's say, you don't really care, like we're not really want to look at margin of error today. So we can just move this away, right? I just want to look at the estimate. So by doing that, it makes the copy pasting job a lot easier. So today we're just going to look at age. So I'm going to copy all of this. Also know that you can't like copy up here, like the information up here. So you can only copy like the numbers, the data. So you have to create your own title later on when you copy and paste into the spreadsheet. Okay, so. Yes, I mean, if you want to follow along, you can open Excel and do this. Okay, so the first step, the most important step in data visualization is actually understanding your data, right? What we're going to make it larger? Oh, yeah. Okay. Is that, can you see it from the back? Even larger? Yes, okay. So understanding the data, can someone tell me, if I am trying to visualize the data over here, I can't, let's say I just want to focus on this one, right? This is the total surveyed. And these are the people who are below poverty level. Can I just use all this data to, let's say, make a pie chart? No? Okay, I'm just going to like do it, right? I'm just going to do this. So in order for you to do a pie chart, it's really easy in Excel. It used to be a lot harder. It used to be, you have to like search in there how to do it. But now you just hit the insert button, and there's already a bunch of charts for you to choose from. So, it's making my role here almost obsolete. in fact. So you create a pie chart. There you go. There's already a pie chart. But if this pie chart is, a pie is always 100%, like a pizza or a pie is like, the whole pie is 100% of the pie, right? So for the data to make sense, it has to actually make 100% of something. But there's something wrong with this pie chart. It's not really 100%, is it? And can someone tell me why it's not 100% based on the data over here? Because if you're going to play with data from a database, you have to understand what the data means, no matter what data you pull out.
Be the 60 years and all over. There's no limit.
No. Thank you for trying those. Anybody else?
Overlapping.
There's overlapping age group, correct. So before you do any of visualization, I'm going to delete this. Before you do any of that, you always want to make sure that the data are sorted out. If things are overlapping, if something doesn't make sense, sometimes in a database, there are things that are not even data. They're just groups of nothing. So you just want to make sure that your data makes sense. So under 18 years, that covers way too many, right? 18 years worth of data. So you want to break it into as many groups as possible to make your visualization meaningful. So the lowest group here would be under 5. So that's redundancy. So you want to take this out. So you keep that under 5, 5 to 17. Related children of household are under 18. That's already captured. Take that away. 18 to 64, too big of a group. You want to break that down to 18 to 34. So also taking this out. And then 18 to 34, 35, 64, 60 years and over is already being covered by this group. So I want to take that out as well. So now you have this group, right? From under 5 all the way to over 65. Now, if you're not sure, okay, does this actually make 100%? What you can do with Excel is actually highlight all the data, and it would actually tell you the sum of it down here. You don't even have to pull out a calculator. You see the sum here is 2201, which is exactly the total surveyed out here. So you know that by taking all the redundancy, you actually got the right 100%, right? And if you highlight this one, it will tell you the same, 204,028 right here. Okay, so now this makes 100% of the total people surveyed. Now you can visualize it, and it's as easy as that. Now, if I want to use this in presentation, does this make sense? I'm showing you this. Like, this is exactly how it appears on slideshow. And I said, these are the people who live below poverty in King County, Washington. And that's the graph, or that's the chart. Does it make sense to anybody? Like, does it help you understand anything? Okay, so this is sufficient for you to understand the people who live in the number of people who live below poverty in King County. Like, is there anything missing? Numbers. I mean, there's numbers for the ages, but that's not really useful either if you don't know how much. You can guess, or maybe eyeballing and saying the green one looks like twice the size of the blue one. Well, that's not very effective, right? So you need labels. How do you add labels? Most times by default, Excel would not add label for you. You have to add label yourself. So you right click. Right click is your best friend in adding anything into your graph. So you add labels. Now, when we use pie chart, you usually don't like numbers for pie chart, not the actual data number. Pie chart, usually we will be using percentages, right? Most pie charts you've seen probably would do percentages. So how do you change these numbers into percentages? One thing you can do is either you change this number into percentages, which you can do right now if you highlight this, and then you format the cells. Let me know if I'm going too fast. And you can change them to percentages. But it would not be correct because it would just change the format into percentages. It would not calculate for you, right? So it's best to just keep the numbers so that you can refer them to the actual number and then just change these into percentages. You format the data label and then change it in percentage. So now it would actually give you the percentages. Now, this is a little bit too crowded for me. You have the actual number, you have the percentages. So you can change it again by taking out the value and just keeping percentages. It's supposed to do all at once, but now it's doing one at a time. So. Okay, what else is missing on this pie chart? Now you have the numbers, you have the legend down here. Well, it shouldn't be called chart title. There needs to be an actual title, right? So total number surveyed. Okay, so these are the total number of people surveyed for population below poverty in King County, Washington, right? Make sure you understand the data that you just visualized. These are not the actual percentage of people who live below poverty. These are just the people who are surveyed to find out if they live below poverty, right? These are the actual people who live below poverty. Now, some people might be interested in asking, how do you know if someone lives below poverty? Do you just straight out ask them, hey, do you live below poverty when you do the census? Clearly, that's not the question, right? So keep in mind that the data here has been calculated, has been processed by the census. They probably ask people about their income, and then using the national average or some kind of calculation, they'll find out what the below poverty level is, and then put the people over there. So that's more of a census process, but just keep in mind, because if you play with a lot of data, you kind of have to ask yourself again, it makes you a better data analyst if you ask yourself, how do people get this data? What kind of potential questions do they ask to get this data? Because in your storytelling later on, people are going to ask you that. How do we find out about this? Let's say you want to use this for grant writing. People are going to, how do you find out about this? Well, the census says so, but how, right? So having a deeper understanding of that is going to make you a better storyteller using data visualization. Okay, what else is wrong with this chart? Let's say if I want to put it for a slideshow, there's still something not quite right about it. It's very glaring. The what? The 3D? We can change it. You know how to change it? Just, yeah, you can change series. Wait, you can just insert and then I think you can change chart type and then 2D. There you go. So it's easy as that. But what else is, and you can move things around. The empty labels. Why are there empty labels there? Because I'm too lazy to delete these rows. So if you do this, there will be no more empty legends. And you can also format the legends. Right? If let's say you want it on the right, not at the bottom, there you go. Boom. So there's a lot of things you can do with right click. And sometimes just trying out and figuring out, hey, if I do this, how it look like? And then if you mess up, you can always undo. But that's pretty much how most people learn, just playing around with the tools and then see what changes if I do this, what changes if I do that. There's so many functionalities in Excel. Definitely don't have the time to go through every single one of them right now. But that's what I would encourage for people who want to venture and try to learn more about data visualization is just try to see what each function does. And then sometimes you click something, nothing happens. And then that's good, right? You didn't break anything. But if something changes, then okay, that's what it does. I'm probably going to need that at some point, but right now it's messing up my charts. So you know what not to do and what to do. You can play around, that will break it out. And that looks funny. I don't want that. That doesn't make any sense. So I want to make sure that I undo that. Okay. Now, like I said, a pie chart usually is a good representation for percentages. But I don't want to talk about percentages. I want to talk about high and low. I want to talk about maybe the progression over age, like from one age to another, from one age group to another. Is there an increase, is there a decrease? What kind of chart will be more appropriate for that kind of visualization? We can use a bar chart, which is something that I want you guys to try in a little bit. But for now, we actually are just going to change. I already showed this before. We can change chart type very easily. And let's say we are going to do line. Okay, so now it's a line chart. Now, a line chart usually is not very suitable for this kind of data. If you've seen any line charts before, it usually shows time. Time is the best, is best represented with a line chart, right? A pie chart with time doesn't make any sense usually, unless you want to show how many percentage of event happen within a certain timeline. Then you can, but that'll be still about percentages. But if you want to show something that happens over time, a line chart will be best. So know that once you know how to build one chart, it's really easy to build all kinds of charts. Back in the days, like 15 years ago, when you use Microsoft Excel to build different kind of charts, you really have to learn to build each one of them. But now, Microsoft's like, oh, you just right-click, change chart type, and then just whichever chart type you want. Okay? So later on, what we will have you do is to build a bar chart. So, but before we get to that, let's go through slideshows again. Okay, so for people who have not used Excel before, these are some notes that we already covered in the notes that we hand out to you. But what we've been working on is basically a workbook. The spreadsheet has rows and columns, have cells, and the interesting thing about Excel is that it kind of kills the need for a calculator, right? If you work with numbers, there's bound to be a lot of calculation needed. And as we do out the exercise later, you will see that you need to actually calculate things. But you don't want to have a calculator on the side tabulating the numbers. You want the computer to do the calculation for you. And I'll show you how to do that. There are some few basic mathematical functions. Well, you can basically do like any kind of math on here, but the few basic ones that we will do today is the basic 4, plus, minus, division, and multiplication. So I'm going to delete this for now. Okay. The pie chart just now showed you the percentage breakdown for all this data over 100%, which is this. But if let's say I want that to be here, I don't really want it. I don't want to have to build a pie chart to know the percentages. How do I do that? Well, 1, you can use the calculator, or 2, you can start a mathematical function using the equal sign. So this cell, you're basically telling this cell, what I want to appear here is something that is equal to, let's say, this number over this number. And then you enter. And that's what you get. And then be like, this is not a percentage. Well, you can, times 100 and it'll give you that. Or you just format this cell to give you a percentage. And you can play around with how many decimals you want that. And then you can do the same here for the second data. And then you can also use this function where you are copying the format and applying it to a different cell. So you can keep on doing that. So Excel knows that the most common thing people do is to calculate a sum of something. So they already added that at the bottom. The two things that people want to know the most is usually the average of something and the sum of something. But if, let's say, you want to calculate using a function anyway, then you can do this. Equals sum, and then drag the area of the data that you want to get a summation of. Close parentheses, you'll get that. It's the same. And you could do the same for average as well. Wait, it's not average, it's average. Sorry. So if I highlight all of this, you can see that the average is already given. The summation is also already given. But if you want to use the function, you can as well. Okay, spreadsheet apps. The most common one is Excel, of course. And then Google Sheet is something that you use if you want to share, usually in the cloud with the people that you work with. It is not as robust as Excel. So there are some limitations to what you can do on Google Sheet. But the basic stuff is all there. You can do visualization with Google Sheet as well. It's pretty much the same. Tableau is very famous for their visuals. Most people who visualize data on Tableau still use Excel to manage the data itself. And then when they need it to look pretty, they go to Tableau and then visualize it using Tableau. Apple numbers, anybody here actually use that? Yeah. So when you buy a Mac, you usually get the whole set, but I don't ever use it, but it's supposed to have the same functionality. Okay, these are all things I already touched before. In order for you to make a chart, you need two sets of information. You need what you're measuring and the measurement, right? If you just have the measurement and you try to make a chart, it'll make no sense. Like what exactly are all these lines and charts are portraying? You would need two sets of information in order to make the most basic of visualization. The most common ones are pie, bar, and line. I already showed you, the pie chart and the line chart, and you're going to be making the bar chart in a bit. So these are, most common things and how they look like. Like I said, pie chart is best to represent a fraction in percentage. This would not be best represented in a pie chart or a line chart because you're comparing ratio. So when you're measuring ratio, a bar chart is the best kind of chart to represent that. These are all information that you can find on the Census Bureau website. I mean, this is something that has been produced by the Census Bureau. So, that's why it looks much nicer than, let's say, this. So, like I said, line chart best used to represent timeline. So when you have years like this, it's best to use a line chart. So one thing I want to point out about this particular chart, you would not be able to go to like this, the database that we used just now and say, I'm just going to use one table and then do this, make this. You're not going to be able to, because as you see, all the tables come per year, right? Right? I'm going to show you. This is just 2018. If I'm trying to make a timeline from 2000 to 2018, I can't, no matter how I use the filter and like do all my magic on this one page, I'm not going to get enough data to do 10 years of data. So I have to actually pull multiple years of report, and it's just as easy as going through each one of them. So you copy the data from 1 year and then go through another report and go through another report. So in order to do something like this, you need lots and lots of data, pages and pages of data. Okay. No, you have to download one CSV at a time. Yeah. Right, we already talked about this.
Difference between 1 year and 5 years.
That will be a question for the census. What's the difference between 1 year estimate and 5 year estimate? Right, that makes sense. They use different statistic model to calculate the estimate. So if I remember my econ statistics class, the data is the same, but the prediction uses different variables in order to get the final number. So the formula is different, but the data that they collect is the same. Mm-hmm.
They take the data from 5 years of survey, so it's got the advantage of being probably more accurate because it's got a larger sample size, but it's got the disadvantage of capturing data from 5 years ago. So you're trying to get up to date.
Okay, so now it's activity time. What is said up here is what you should actually follow. What is put on the first page, there's like a little bit of instruction on the first page of your note. Don't worry about that. This is the actual activity that we want you to work off. So like I mentioned, you're doing exactly what I just showed you to do, but you want to see it in a bar chart. And that should be easy because you already seen it done. But then for those who are really good at this and have done this many, many times before, there's a second level, which is I want you to actually make 2 charts and then combine those 2 charts into 1 chart. So the second chart is, the first is basically a different data set that you need to work off, right? One is total population, one is the people who are actually living below poverty, and then I want a chart where those 2 overlap. It is not quite stacked because I'll show you what a stacked bar look like and why is that useful and why is that not useful. But for this particular data, an overlap chart will make more sense. So we'll do about 10 minutes. If you have any questions, let any one of us know and we can help you out. That is how it would look like, the first part. So this is what the people who live below poverty level graph should look like. The second one should look like that, the total population survey. I mean, the color might not be exactly the same. This default color. Okay, has anyone actually done the one with the 2 graphs? Yes, does it look like this? There's a reason why, in order to visualize this particular data, this is the best look. I mean, yes, this is the best look. Okay, so I'm gonna walk you through how we get here. So this is the data that we were using just now. So I think a lot of people got the first step. So we'll do the first one first, which is the people who live below poverty. Right? This is the people who live below poverty. Of course, I have to add the labels and all the stuff. This is how you get it. This is the second one, which is for people who are the total number of people surveyed, which is why you get a bigger number, closer to 1 million. Now, in order to combine these two, you highlight both columns. And then you pick this. So a lot of people probably do something like this, right? Which is not bad. As you can see the difference between the people who are surveyed and the people within that group of the people who are surveyed who actually live below poverty level. But like I said, in trying to tell a story, the people who live below poverty level, story-wise, are also people who were surveyed. They are the same group, right? They are a subset of the total people surveyed. So the best way to represent that is probably to put them overlapping, right? So how do you do that? So that's the extra. Like if you show this, like we get the data, like it's the right information. But again, in storytelling, you want to show the message that they are actually a subset. You have to select data. Well, hold on. You have to format data series, and you can do 100% overlap, right? Overlapping data usually looks really nice, especially if you want to show, for example, data of projection versus actual, and you do an overlap, then you can see, like what is projected and what is the actual. It looks much nicer than putting them next to each other. Okay, so that's how you do it. Any questions? Yeah, if you want them to overlap 100%. If you don't do 100%, I will show you what it looks like. It'll be like that, right? It'll look funny. So 100%. Yep.
Can I put a data attribution, a data source comment on the chart?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to add anything, go to home. There should be a text box somewhere here.
Well,
Insert.
I think that's what we do.
Yeah, no, you put insert actually. Insert and then text box. And then you can say source is super credible. I mean, you can write anything, really. So you can throw as many words as you want on there. But of course, in workshop 3, we might talk about this a little bit. The best charts have, the least amount of words. Because if it's too crowded, then your brain is going to get, overwhelmed by the amount of information. So it's better to have visuals. That's why we want to have visuals to speak for us in the first place, rather than a full report with words and words and words, right? Question? Right. It's just a matter of aesthetic, honestly. When you think about increase and decrease of something, when the conversation is about an increase in sale or a decrease in sale or population, then you want to use a vertical chart, because your brain would think, well, increase, decrease, that would make way more sense, right? But when you talk about distance, let's say, then you probably want to do left and right, because when we think about distance, we don't really think up and down. We think more on the horizontal part, right? So that is really just how you visualize and what makes sense to your brain in order for you to because there'll be like a cognitive dissonance for you, right? You think about height, but then you're looking on a horizontal, then that doesn't make sense. So the context of the data that you're using, right? Everybody managed to get here? Or still not sure how to get here?
Yeah, so what is the tab for the
Yeah. So Yeah, so you right click and you format data series and you make sure that the series overlap is 100%. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing that we are going to do, we're going to have two separate activities. Very exciting. So for people who want to do more data visualization, we encourage you to go to the Census Bureau database, pick whatever data you want, play around with it, visualize it in any way that you want. If you have any questions, let us know and we'll help you out. Maybe you already have some kind of data that you've been, wanting to visualize for your personal interest. We can help you with that while we're here. The second part is we are actually going to do a quiz. Everybody loves quiz. I know that Seattle is like secretly competitive. Everybody is like, don't want to pretend like they want to speak up, but like in their head they're like, I'm the best. I want to be the best. So we have this quiz. The TAs. First of all, I forgot to introduce the TAs. So can you please introduce yourself? So the TAs. Okay, he's busy. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Richard. I'm a data scientist.
So they play with this data, with this kind of stuff, way more than I do actually. So they are the experts here. So these are 8 quiz questions that we have. The person who gets the most correct, or if we have a tie, the person who gets it done first. We have a book to give away. It's called Creative Sprint. So I can add in a signature to it if you want. But yes, so all of this information, like I said, is in the database. The answer is going to be based off 1 year estimate. So this is a good exercise. Once you get used to doing this, later on when you want to use the Census Bureau database, it will just come easy to you. So we'll give about 15 minutes. Yes, 3 and 6. Did you hand out the questions already though? Okay, so Julie is going to hand out the questions. The wording on question number 3 and 6 on the piece of paper that you're going to get is actually, not quite clear. So I've updated it because we printed it yesterday and I changed it today. So for question 3 and 6, just follow the one on the screen instead. But if you don't want to do the quiz, you want to play with data more, you want to make more visualizations, you have questions about that, feel free to do that as well. So just like Google search, when you try to search for something, the first result might not be what it is, right? You might have to expand your search further and further down the search result to actually get the right data that you're trying to find. Okay, I'm going to share the answers with you. We are going to do an honor system here. You can grade yourself. That's the most important thing because I'm going to be honest with you, I actually had to make a video of how to answer this, each one of them, and the total video time is 20 minutes. So that's the most direct to the answer, and it took me 20 minutes. So I have a question for people who have done this exercise. You obviously can't just use the search function to get the answer, right? Like if you just write, I want the number of Asian population in King County, you're not going to get that, right? Or if you just say Asian population and then filter all the way to King County, you're not going to get that. So you have to understand the survey, what kind of questions are asked, what kind of data are collected, right? So what kind of survey would ask about someone's race? That's usually a characteristic or demographic survey. So maybe that's the word that you want to use, right? The word race, demographic, characteristic. If you just put Asian in there, you're going to get so many different things. So, knowing what keyword to search for is the most important part in using the database. And then, as you try to filter information using the bar, the toolbar, you start getting a sense of what is the limitation of the database. If you're trying to find certain things within a specific location, let's say I live in Columbia City, I want to know specifically in Columbia City how many people are diabetic because I am planning to open an ice cream shop. I'm probably not going to get that information. So you need to, as you do more and more of this, you're starting to get to understand the limitation of the database and what are the best way to measure things. Right? When I first used this, I was like, I can't find Seattle for the life of me because I'm looking for city, and under city I'm looking for Seattle. I can't find it. But then I noticed that there's actually a field called places. Well, places is super generic. How was I supposed to know that Seattle would fall under places, right? I was looking for city. So as you play around with it a little bit more, you notice, okay, there's actually an area for Seattle metro area, which is Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma information. Maybe that's exactly what you want. Instead of finding information about Seattle specifically, Tacoma specifically, and Bellevue specifically, there's already the Tri-City data for that. So play around with it a little bit more, and then you will know all the horizontals and verticals that are available in the database. Okay? So does anybody have any problem maneuvering over the database, like something that doesn't make sense, or something that they think should be a function, but feel that the function is not there, or maybe the function is really not there, or maybe it is there, but you just couldn't find it. So does anybody have any trouble with the database? Or it's pretty straightforward, it's just taking time to get there? Okay, I take it that it's pretty easy to understand. It's just being familiar with it and taking time to get there. Okay, if you do have any questions after the session, you can reach out to the organizer, and we can probably help you out. But for people who didn't turn in their answers, did you get something different and confused as to why your answer is a little bit different than what the actual answer is? We can talk about it. I can show you how we arrived to that number, because you're probably like, I think I did it right. How is it that my answers are different than yours? So we'll do that one. So give me a second here. So when you want to look at question 3, which is school enrollment, I did the basic person thing to do, which is search for school enrollment. So you see here the school enrollment for all ages. The one that we were talking about is actually all the way at the bottom, right? Males age 18 to 24 and females age 18 to 24. Let's widen this a little bit so that we can actually read what's going on down there. So you have this and you have this, but this is the total. Public school information is over here. So you want to bring that here. So these are the number that you want to take. And then you do the math and then you'll get that. Okay. So yeah, sometimes we go just like one layer, we just want to know how many agents. And sometimes we're like, how many agents in that specific location? And then we want to know, even if we go one deeper layer, we'll change the year. So when you read the question, you'll notice that there are a few variables that you have to change or edit in order to get the right answer. Okay, so if let's say you already picked Seattle, and then now you want to change just the year, you can just change the year, the filter remains the same. Yes, then it will remove everything. Yeah. Yes. Yes, the filter will be removed when you start new search. Actually, I think there should be a function for that though. I've tried it, and whenever I start a new search, it changes. Okay. Do people want to copy the answer so that you can go home and try to finish it? I know some people are completionists.
Yeah.
They're like, I want to go home and try to find this out myself. So I'll give you a minute to copy down the answer. Yeah, you know, the one that is the longest is actually number 6. Did anybody get number 6? Did anybody get number 6 correctly? 64.41%. Let's do number 6 together. Are people interested in learning how to do number 6? Yes? Okay. The question number 6 is basically you're looking for the type of health insurance, right? So if you just Google health insurance, the table will be there, but there's so many tables to choose from. You'll have all of this, the public health insurance, blah, blah, blah. And you notice the question specifically asks about company-based insurance. So public health probably is not going to cover that, right? So this is things that you, again, as you're searching, you have to think about. So what you're really looking for is the type of health insurance. So you go through down here and you can't see anything. And you load more, it's probably going to take a while. Oh, there you go, type of health insurance. Or you can just search type of health insurance, you probably get there faster. So this is what we're looking for. So let's do customize table. And we are looking at Seattle, right? Can you give me the question sheet? Seattle for 2015, okay. So this is 2018, I'll change it to 2015. Okay, so this is the data that I'm looking for. Now it's asking how many people in Seattle has employer-based health insurance. Now, there's a lot of stuff here. So what I will do is, let me start a new spreadsheet. Whenever you see the word employer-based health insurance, that's the data that you want. So you start from the top and make sure that you're not copying any redundant information, right? So because this is already grouped by age, you start with people under the age of 18. So you have employer-based health insurance. This is one data point. So where else do you find employer-based health insurance? So this is also employer-based, and this is also employer-based. And just keep on going down the age group. So employer-based. I mean, if you want to make sure that you don't make any mistake, you can actually type out the age group yourself, but I'm not going to do that. Okay, so the total number of people with insurance, with employer-based health insurance is 437,199. Wait, where do you go? It's fine. Equals. Okay, but the question is asking for percentage. So percentage has to be over total. But the total that we're trying to measure here today is the total number of people in Seattle, which is at 2015, there's about 600,000 people who were surveyed. So this is the number that we want. So the percentage will be this over the total number of population, and you get 64.4. Was that confusing? Did you follow step by step? Yeah. One thing I noticed is I was doing this exercise myself. I don't know if people noticed as they were going through this question. Does anybody know roughly the percentage of people who drive alone to work in the United States? So this is before you filter it to Washington. But as I was doing, I was like, damn, that's actually a lot of people who drive to work. Does anybody want to give a try of guessing how much? 75? It's over 90%. I think it was like 94%. You know how the percentage for Seattle for people who drive to work alone? 60%. So we definitely, we're doing pretty good. But if you look at the data, this, if you're interested in that topic, you would notice like city with public transportation tend to be, the percentage of people driving is lower. Well, the survey will be based on where you live, right? So the survey is sent to where you live, and then they don't care where you work. They're just asking, do you drive to work or not? So basically, people in the city of Seattle tend to not drive as much as the national level. So if you look at data from like major cities with good public transportation, that number is usually a lot lower than the national number. 93% or so, national number. So, because here we were like, oh, a lot of people take, but people say Seattle people live in a bubble. So if you think about the entire nation, most people do drive to wherever they need to go. Okay, so we'll do one quick review of what we've learned today. Really quick review. At the end of the day, today's workshop is about data visualization. I know that a lot of people are already pretty familiar with Excel. They probably know how to do data visualization, but most jobs don't really actually require you to make charts, right? And but knowing how to make charts is actually a really good skill. I think, like especially for people who are very organized. Like I know people who make charts for their like daily life. They make timetables and make charts of how much time they spend doing certain things, and like 24 hours a day, how much time did I do this and that, and there are apps for that, but people like to do it themselves and they get to see that. So it's definitely not a waste to have knowledge on that for sure. But I'm also excited that a lot of people here are actually excited about the database. And when I started playing with it, I'm like, wow, I can actually now use data to back my my belief or to change my belief, because now I have data in my hand. I have access to this database. Most times people just think based on observation, right? Come to Seattle, like I said, a lot of people take public transportation. Every time I take light rail, like around rush hour, like it's like shoulder to shoulder. It's like, oh, okay, so Seattle public transportation utilization must be really good. But then you have access to this data, and then you try to compare, let's say, Seattle to LA or Seattle to Portland, and you might actually see, wow, for the fact that LA's public transportation system not being that great, their utilization rate is a lot higher, right? So instead of just assuming and guessing, now you actually can tell by using data. So this is actually a really good tool that everybody here, I hope, if there's one takeaway from here, if you're like, I already know how to build charts, is that now I actually have access to data. So it'll be much more enriched conversation that you're going to have moving forward because you have data to actually support your conversation. I think the things that I write right there on the review are pretty straightforward. The last one is, I think everybody who has worked with a computer before know that, as you work with data visualization and with data, pages and pages of data, it's best to save as often as you can, especially after you make visualizations. Save it, because sometimes you have to move things around and you might not even know what data goes anywhere anymore, because if you have something like this, right, and then you're just like moving things, and you might not actually move the entire thing, you just move number like that. Like, what is that? How did it get there? So it's best to save. But that's just, common wisdom nowadays when you work with any computer programs. I think that's pretty much it. Yes. Oh, yeah. So you have a survey on your table. So, we would like to know what you think about today's content. If people are interested in knowing more about using Tableau and about storytelling using data visualization, they'll be a part of workshop 3 that will be happening next week. There's one that's happening in this room as well next week. So, if you haven't signed up already, please do. The same way you sign up for this one. Like I said, the focus of today is to learn how to do data visualization using Excel, but the next one is going to be a lot heavier on how to use data to do storytelling. So if that is more interesting to you, or just as interesting, please do sign up for that.
In my work at the library supporting entrepreneurs, this kind of work is really familiar, and we have a data tool called Demographics Now that you can use to get to census data. And then also to other private data and Bureau of Labor Statistics data and like a whole bunch of other data, like all in one interface. So if that's interesting to you, let me know. I'm happy to tell you more about it. We can work one-on-one. You can schedule an appointment with the librarian to walk you through that and the other kind of market research tools. The other thing is, anybody building a website for their business or building a website in general right now? Okay, so in this room, on Monday, we have a fantastic class on how to build a website from a marketing perspective. So it's technical in terms of here's what you do, but the person who's doing it is a digital marketing expert, and so he's coming at it from that perspective of that user. So that's a really fantastic one. Always free. There's a list of other classes in the back there for our library to business. So there's stuff on trademark and copyright. If you're an inventor and you're going to be patenting something, I have 2 workshops on patent, whole bunch of classes. There's a little flyer in the back.
Let's just give a round of applause for our instructor.